Point is one of your transform properties. It's in there with position, scale, rotation, and opacity, but it differs from them in a few ways, and it also has an effect on a number of these other properties, so it's worth looking at on its own. The anchor point is this crosshairs here in the center of my yellow object. Now, the anchor point is a center point around which things happen. So the anchor point is going to be a center of transformations. It's also going to be a center of rotation. So it's like a reference point that After Effects uses when it's doing transformations. Now the anchor point can be changed, it can be moved, and when you move the anchor point, then the animation is going to look quite different. First of all, if we look down here on the layer itself, you'll see that the anchor point has some numbers next to it. So I'll explain those first. What these are the coordinates of the anchor point relative to the shape. So you can see the numbers 696 here and 254. What that's saying is that it's 696 pixels across and 254 pixels down before you get to the anchor point. You can change the position of the anchor point down here by clicking and dragging on any one of these numbers. So if I click this to the left, you'll see that the anchor point moves relative to the shape. This is a slightly awkward way of doing it because what it actually does is it leaves the anchor point in the same position on the screen but moves the shape around the anchor point. Now an easier way of doing this is to go up and to use your pan behind tool. Now a quick way of doing this while you have the selection tool selected is to hold down Y, and when you hold down Y, the pan behind tool is selected and you can click and drag that anchor point anywhere that you want to, inside or outside of the shape itself. And when you let go of Y, you get your selection tool back. So now if I was to rotate this object, you would see that it rotates around the anchor point. Because the anchor point is moved, then the animation is going to look quite different. Okay, so that's the anchor point, so you can control it by changing the coordinates of the anchor point relative to the shape, or you can just hold down Y or go up to your pan behind tool and move it. So let's look at some practical reasons why you would be adjusting your anchor point. First of all, I'll switch off this lozenge and I'm going to drag a layer here called drop that I've just created in Illustrator. So I'm going to bring that out onto the center. Now, by default, After Effects puts the anchor point in the center of the shape. If I was to do a scale on this, then it will scale it around the center point. But if I wanted to make this look like the drop was dripping out of the top of the screen, for example, then I would hold down Y, move the anchor point to the top of the drop. So now when I do a scale, you'll see that it looks more natural. It looks as if the drop is coming from the point where I've left the anchor point. So I could make an animation where it looks like a drop is growing and it's about to drop off the top of the screen. Okay, so I'll just turn that layer off now and show you another example using text. So when you create text, it's very important to remember whether or not you want to have it left aligned, centered, or right aligned, because this is where your anchor point is going to be when you create your text. So if I have it centered and I create some text, when I get my selection tool, you'll see that the anchor point is at the center. Now it's at the bottom, but it's still at the center. Now if I wanted to create some text and have the anchor point on the left, then I would left align the text. You'll now see that the anchor point is on the left. So let's say that I wanted to create a specific type of animation here, where I wanted to have the text look like it's kind of being squeezed up against the right hand side of the screen. Okay, so I'll just change the writing and pull it over there to the right. Now by holding down Y, I can move the anchor point over here to the right, so that now when I transform this just from the left to right, or horizontally, it's going to look like the text is being squeezed up against the left hand side or the right hand side of the screen. So this is another example of why you might move an anchor point.